since this election hype has been going on, I initially look at all of the parties because I don't affiliate with a specific party per se. So I looked at Bernie Sanders, and I didn't even bother to look at Hillary Clinton. Been there, done that. And I'm not interested in Jeb Bush. I looked at that, been there, done that. Trump is interesting just for the fact that he at least knows how to make money, and that's apparently been something that the country's had a problem with. And then he also thinks that we should put up a fence, which, regardless if it's at the top or the bottom border, I think is necessarily, it could be, a good idea. And even if people would argue that over in Europe they don't do that, they're doing that now. So, that argument's completely out the window, and I'd like to have a different debate about that at this point. But anyway, so a couple of my friends and I have debated back and forth because we're undecided voters, essentially, or we were. I would still say that I am, because I don't make my decision until the time is appropriate, because I look at the issues that the country's facing and the different issues that are going to be impacting us from other foreign affairs and countries, and then decide on what takes more precedence and which person I could vote for that would be the best fit to take care of those priority issues. Because that's why there's temporary terms for presidencies, because we can swap them out. And even though people argue that laws can be made and they can be permanent, they can also be repealed. It's the whole beauty of the Constitution, the democracy, and the way that the system was created by the Founding Fathers. So, that being said, one of my friends has it's not that I was trying to sway her, we were just still having our debate thing, and she is, a while ago we were both like, I don't know if I like Bernie or Trump. We were both like on the fence. It's like, I don't know if I like Bernie or Trump more, and I started leaning more towards Trump, and she started leaning more towards Bernie. And even though I think both of them bring up valid points, I prefer Trump out of the two, because at least at this point, I'm almost at my wit's end with the shafty shit that's been going on with the U.S. government, that I'd prefer to just elect somebody who's not going to mess with the Constitution any more than it already is. That is like my minimum requirement. At this point, everything else is negotiable. I've never actually had that kind of mentality to be, subconsciously pushing that narrative that, oh my god, this is better. I just make insulting remarks about everyone because everyone has flaws and benefits. She was trying to tell me that I need to look more into Bernie, and that Bernie has common sense, and that his policy plans are, important and the people need them. She was trying to argue that I think that it's not important, that there's more emphasis on helping the lower or middle class with their finances. I never said that. I have a problem with the way he intends to implement that. So, I have an example. He recently, I don't know recently because I actually haven't really been paying attention to him much, but at some point or another, he has been raising concerns or his detest for excessive fees from bank ATMs. I'm not talking about your actual financial provider per se, because I know that some of them actually do, but there's plenty of bank options out there, or credit unions even, where it doesn't cost you money to withdraw. But I'm talking about actual convenience stations, ATMs, that are in mom and pop businesses, that are in supermarkets, malls, tourist attraction areas, that are set up there for convenience of the person who came unprepared with the money that they needed for whatever reason. I know that certain situations come up per se, and not everybody can always be prepared, but there are definitely different ways to approach this. First off, he doesn't understand the concept of this. So I'll go ahead and play this clip here.
In my view, it is unacceptable that Americans are paying $4 or $5 in fees every time they go to an ATM.
Okay, So first off, I'll go ahead and use some personal examples because those are the best ones and those are the ones that most people actually know what the hell they're talking about. I grew up with my parents essentially most of my early adolescence having their own businesses. They had a tourist attraction business in the ghost town of Virginia City where, like Ghost Adventures got their start at. And then later had a specialty pet shop in Las Vegas that my father actually still runs to this day. And it's really cool, by the way, if you ever go there and you like reptiles, check it out. Probably do an insert or something in this if anybody's curious about that, just for the hell of it. But so my father ran that shop on his own, had a little bit of help from my mom, but ran the shop on his own, does his own finances, his own accounting, he does his own books, he takes care of the phone calls, he does all the ordering, and he talks to breeders, and he bred most of the animals himself that were captive bred, obviously. And so he tried to be a one-man show and does everything on his own and likes it that way. So essentially, he didn't. That was back when it was. He opened his store in like 1992, 1993. That was obviously back before there was the little swipey thing on the smartphones or whatever. And there wasn't when there was PayPal really accepted, and he had a physical store. He still has a physical store. He needed some sort of way for people to be able to pay with credit cards and or debit cards when they needed to. So he does what everybody else does. There's small businesses or mom and pop shops. They have the little ATM thing. It's not an actual station like what he's referring to, but it's the same concept. So he gets this little ATM thing. It's sponsored by, I believe, like the actual card holder, so like Visa or whatever. I'm not totally sure exactly because obviously I was quite young then. I think I was like 6 when he would do this, and we've never had this elaborate discussion, so I'm not totally sure who he actually has that issued through. But he is really blunt and straightforward like me, and I have heard him before get into kind of like arguments and tits for tats with some employees or whatever for swiping multiple times before and just not using the machine properly. And it came down to because every time you swipe it, there's a certain amount of the actual transaction, or there's a certain fee that is tagged on to each swipe because it costs money for that facilitator who issues that machine to then do the transaction electronically via modem or whatever, or phone line back then. So my father has to pay for that because that's a convenience thing for him to be able to offer that kind of payment option to his customers in his business, so he can likely have a larger customer base to be more convenient to the customers that come into his shop. So he would be the same way with people that would, have their card swiped and then it wouldn't go through, and then he says, sorry, it's declined, and the mumbo jumbo, it happens to everybody. And they insist that he swipes again, and he would swipe it one more time, and then if they would ask, they would call their bank and then try to ask if they can swipe it again. Sometimes my father would just say, just come back, I'll hold the animal for you, I'm not going to swipe this again, because he gets paid he gets charged a certain amount. And then even in the town that I live in, there are a lot of mom and pop small business shops and stores, because it's a small town that's kind of self-sustained. And specifically, there's a little convenience store down the way, and it has what I've seen before at multiple places. Has a little sign on the counter that says $5 minimum purchase with debit or credit card. And I remember my boyfriend that happens to be from a metropolitan area and doesn't understand that, because he's basically grown up around corporate America where it costs them like a fraction of an amount for them, and they don't even care. It's chump change that they don't ever charge for things like that. So he was wondering why they charge for things like that, and he asked him why. And every once in a while people are kind of rude about that because they feel like it's the same kind of concept as asking them how much money they make. But there was one person that actually decided to explain it to him, and they were just like, well, we get charged a certain amount per service or per transaction swipe, so just for us to either we need to charge you for the fee, which ends up being 50 cents, and or we require that you buy at least $5 worth of merchandise so we can make our money back. I never thought of that, actually, because my father's store, nothing's $5. So you're definitely spending way more than that. So the same kind of thing goes into account with this. So I used to live in Las Vegas, obviously, have a good friend. And her and I, we equally are guilty of being airheads at times. And I always hated, like, going in line for an ATM. And I'm kind of, like, really, like, a penny pincher in certain ways. And back then, going through college, supporting myself, it was a good reason to be. She kind of was born with a silver spoon in her mouth and doesn't really, she takes for granted a couple dollars here and there that's wasted for random things. So we both actually had the same bank. We had Washington Mutual. There's tons of different locations. Also in Las Vegas, there's like Walmarts and Walgreens that you can just go in and buy a pack of gum or water or soda and then get some cash back, which is substantially cheaper than the ATM fees. So think about this. We would go on the strip. We love to go, like, have a couple of cocktails and go play in the arcade or something. So we would obviously need cash for the arcade. And she would, before I would leave, I'd say, okay, I'm going to stop by the bank, and she'd be with me. And I would go in and go get something, and she's like, yeah, I'm just going to wait here, or blah, blah, blah. And I go and withdraw money, and she knew that what I was getting it for. So I'd go withdraw money, and then we would go on our merry way. And when we're already down the strip, there's absolutely nothing down there. I mean, there is a Walgreens down there, but it's not worth trying to get into. The parking right there is ridiculous. So we would go there, and then she'd go, oh crap, that's right, I need cash for the arcade. And so she'd go stand in this long line with this really crappy, tacky looking ATM machine. And then you'd hear everybody who gets in line, like the tourists that are all screwed up on drunk or whatever, saying, $3.50 to withdraw $20, that's bullshit. Well, yeah, buddy. Go to the fucking Walgreens down the street. Or go, like, I can't think of it. There's a couple 7-Elevens even. Go to 7-Eleven. Like, there's the strip street, and then if you go east or west, like, on the parallel streets of that, there's a normal fucking town that has all kinds of shit that you can buy things and get fucking money back. Go figure it out. Go figure it out. So she always did that, and that's the thing. There are ways around this whole ATM fee. I don't understand what he's getting at. So just in case that my example is not good enough for you, I actually pulled something up that is 4 ways to never pay for ATM fees. So this is by today.com / and it says for /money 4 ways to never pay for ATM fees again. And then it says banks say that they're trying to claw back on fixed costs of maintaining their ATM networks. Because, again, regardless of what bank actually facilitates that ATM, portable ATM machine, regardless if it's in a supermarket, a gas station, a casino, wherever, there has to be some sort of fee attributed to that just to have it and to process money out. Do you think that somebody out of the goodness of their heart comes and reimburses that ATM and fills it up with freaking money? No. There's a guy who gets paid to do that goes around with one of those armored cars that fills up all the ATMs everywhere, that is then hired by a bank somewhere, and then the bank obviously charges the facility that has it for using it. There are fees involved in this. It's the convenience factor. It's not free. That's one of the things that bothers me about Bernie Sanders. The concept that everything was free would be great. Like, if we could go to a barter system and go, hey, so I'll give you this clothesline for that. Like that hair clip. It kind of works the same. Like, if we wanted to do something like that, that'd be cool. But it's not going to happen like that, so you can't give things for free. This is not Craigslist free stuff kind of thing, okay? We can't implement that on a nationwide scale. So what it says is that says if you're using a bank that doesn't credit back your ATM fees, you could be wasting up to $200 to $300 per year. So this is what he's talking about, and he's like, for brick and mortar bank that doesn't charge fees, check out a few more premium checking accounts at TD Bank or performance selecting checking accounts at PNC Bank. However, the former requires a monthly minimum balance of $2,500. So I'm not going to go into that, but there are they were giving you options on where you can go to get free ATM fees. But here are 4 tips to avoid ATM fees. Online-only banks. Several online-only banks, such as Ally, Simply, or USAA, also refund ATM fees. So if you actually had an online bank, therefore there's no physical ATM to withdraw from, the bank actually reimburses you the ATM fees on a regular basis. So if you were actually one of those lazy fucks who can't actually figure out where to go and withdraw money from a place that's free, you probably want to do that. You can also do brokerage firm accounts. Investing or brokerage firms also offer money market accounts that reimburse ATM fees. So there's that. So it's like Fidelity, E-Trade, etc., etc. And then we scroll down to, it says withdraw less frequently or stay in your bank's network. So if you have a big bank, only go to their ATMs, which is what I'm talking about. So like Bank of America, Chase, Citi, or you also go to a Walmart or a Walgreens, even if there's not Walmarts, especially with apparently a good almost 300 Walmarts closing soon because the stock's not doing that great and the economy in general. Walgreens are everywhere because everybody gets sick. So just go to a Walgreens and go get a pack of gum. And then it says get cash back at checkout, but watch out for fees. So yeah, that goes into what I was just talking about. Walgreens doesn't charge for it. I don't know if Walgreens does that, nationwide, but at least on the West Coast, for the majority of the states, they don't do that. So there are options for you to do that. The fact that he doesn't understand why there are fees and understand how if he puts a cap on something like that, that he will be crippling and essentially, the whole trickle-down system that he tries to reference. He will be trickling down debt. He will be screwing over the mom and pop stores and businesses that he seems to insinuate that he's supportive of. So, Bernie Sanders, before you start insinuating that you are helping the middle class or the working class, please take into account the repercussions of the things that you are suggesting. I understand it would be nice for everybody who could really use that extra couple bucks from the ATM fees to not have to do it, but there are ways to avoid those fees. And if those people are not willing to go to the lengths, the very minimal lengths to avoid those ATM fees, then they obviously don't care if they save the money or not. Then you're just enabling lazy, fucked up shit, which is the entire platform pretty much of Bernie Sanders followers. It's the people that have no work ethic, no pride in themselves, were never taught to have passion in any kind of service, work in service, or, striving for something that they dream to do. And that's not society's fault for you to now spoon feed them because they lack the capacity to give their life meaning. And rant.